Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, and welcome to my stream. Hello, let's play chess. Today, solve tactic. Take your time and find the best move. In this position, white play king g3. Have two rooks against three pieces against two. King g3, can give check. King g4 only move. Force draw by check. If I play rook 2 h3, we can give check with rook 2 h3 or rook h4 h2. Give check, king f2, rook f4, king e2, rook 4 h3 check, only move king g4, then rook takes knight, and threat rook 2 h4 mate, and mate. Easy puzzle, easy win. Let's go. Two puzzles in a row. Good start. This position, white play queen b4. White put the queen on b4. 5 pieces against 6 pieces. Two rooks, queen, bishop, knight f6 against queen b4, bishop g5, knight g1, knight b1, rook e1, and rook h1. Bishop g5, pin, knight f6. Can play queen takes d5 or knight takes d5. Knight takes d5 threat. Knight takes b4. After knight takes d5, if bishop takes d8, knight takes b4. Bishop on g5 not protected. We can take on d5, make discover attack. After knight takes d5, bishop takes d8, can take on b4. We threat win the bishop and same time threat knight c2 check, fork the king and fork the rook. Come back to d2, protect the queen. And you push f6. Or push e3. Push e3, queen protect the bishop. Push e3 with tempo. Bishop takes d8, pawn takes d2 with the check, followed by rook takes bishop. After push e3, blockade the diagonal. Queen protect the bishop. Thanks for the follow, welcome to my stream. Queen d2, come back, protect bishop g5. You can blockade with pawn e3, push e3, bishop takes d8, pawn takes queen with the check, followed by rook takes d8. After e3, if bishop takes e3, can takes with knight, queen d8, rook d8, followed by bishop b2. Okay, now queen takes with the check, knight takes, bishop b2, or play queen queen e4 check, queen h4, g3, bishop g3. Takes, can takes with king, bishop takes b2. Okay, 4 pieces against 5 against 4. Queen d2, knight d2, bishop b2. We can play rook d1, but we can give check, followed by rook a d8 win tempo. Easy puzzle, easy win. 3 puzzles in a row. Push g3, bishop takes g3. Now we can develop rook a d8, control d file. Next puzzle, 4 pieces against 4. Last move, black play rook g5. We can use the pin by knight d4. Make attack on queen e6 and bishop c6. Can give check, or king d7, or knight c5. Knight d4, come back. Okay, knight c5, then make discover attack. Rook not protected. Knight c5, queen f5. Now we threat bishop takes f3, so knight can use the pin, bishop takes f3, rook g2, pawn f3 is pinned by rook, pawn g2 is pinned by rook g5, and black threat bishop takes f3. Remove the bishop from c6 with knight d4, fork the rook, fork the queen, and fork bishop c6. Queen d5, knight takes c6, queen c6, knight d4, big blunder. Give check, queen g5, nice puzzle. Check, check, takes. Put the king on d8. Next position, give check with rook. Bishop rook against rook and bishop. King g7 or king e7. Can go to g6 or e6. Hello Pseudos, welcome to my stream. Black threat, bishop d3. So if I play king g2, if I play rook king g7, he can play rook d8 and stop bishop d3. Let's play king e7, threat to win the rook, same time threat bishop d3, use the pin. Okay, now if I play this move, give check, that's bishop d3 and takes with rook. If I take with bishop, he can threat rook e3 check, fork the king and fork the bishop. Takes with rook. Rook. If I play rook d7 now, rook d2, king e3. If I give check, he can win the rook. So put the bishop on. Come back with bishop, protect the rook. Put the bishop on b5, you can play rook c5. bishop can go to b5 or bishop e6. Bishop e6, rook e3, rook. Okay, bishop e6, rook e3, you can play rook e6, but bishop b5, rook b5, pawn f4, control e5. So bishop e6, rook c3 or rook c6 or rook e3, rook come back to e6. Threat check. Threat take the pawn. Let's come back with rook. Or play king f6. If you give check, you can blockade with rook. Easy puzzle, easy win. Let's go. Next position. I have 3 pieces, 4 pieces against 5. Last move knight f4, make attack on bishop h5. Can give check. Bishop control d1. King f2 can give check. Or win the rook. Let's give check with queen. Then takes with the queen. Or takes with bishop. And if queen takes, queen c3, bishop c4 not protected. Check for the king and for the bishop. Queen c4 with tempo. Let's go. Next position, black play b7, b6. 7 pieces against 8. 2 rooks, queen, 2 bishop, and knight. 2 knights. Can we trap the queen? Look at the queen on b7. Can play knight c4. Control e3 and make attack on queen b2. If you play queen c3 check, can play bishop d2. Queen is trapped. So knight c4, queen c3, bishop d2. Knight c4. If queen b4 check, you want to go to e4, push c3 open diagonal for the queen, control e4. If queen takes c3, bishop d2. So knight c4, queen b4, c3, queen c3, bishop d2, win the queen, and after knight c4, if queen b5, knight d6 check, discover attack and win the queen. Knight c4, c3 prevent queen e4, and force queen takes c3. After queen c3, you can play bishop d2. Easy puzzle, easy win. Let's go. Next position, queen and rook against queen and rook. 3 pawns against 3. Rook controls 7th rank, queen controls 6th rank. King on g2 not protected. We can give checkmate with 2 pieces. Can play queen e4 check or queen d5 check. Queen e4 check. If king go to h3 or king h2, rook h1 mate. After queen e4, f3, queen e2, you can blockade with queen f2. Queen e4 check. If you push f3, rook d2, you can go to h3, and if I come back to f5, we can push g4 with the check. Queen e4, f3, then queen c2. Control 2nd rank with queen. If you blockade, if you play queen f2, you can play rook d2, pin the queen. If you give check, you can come back and blockade with pawn. Queen e4, then queen c2. Queen e2, you can come back with queen f2. So queen c2, check, king h3, rook h1 mate. Queen e2, queen f2, queen c2 check, and rook d2. Rook h4, king d6. 4 puzzles in a row. Keep going. Let's go. Next position. We have 6 pieces against 7. Last move. Black play bishop b6. You can suggest moves, my friends. Take your time and play the best move. Queen on e4, queen e5 not protected. If I give check, queen takes. Okay, check with the queen. If king e2, you can see my friends, queen control 7 rank. Check force queen e8 or king d7. Queen f8 check, king d7, king d7, check, king d7, give check, king d7, bishop b5, queen b5, check, king d7, if we play bishop f4 now, or make short castle and threat rook d1, play forcing move, bishop f4, you can play queen f6. If I play forcing move, give check on f8, you can blockade with king, with queen e8, or play king d7. If I give check with queen, play queen d8, can give check with bishop g5, king d7, then queen f5 check, king here, check with bishop, bishop g5, knight f6, takes, b takes, queen c3. Okay, now you play knight e7 takes with bishop. If queen use the pin, the queen is pinned, can win piece by bishop e7, king go to d7, queen f5 check. Okay, queen f5, king e7. Can we take on g7 now? Queen takes g7, threat win piece. Bishop takes, king e7, king d7, queen f5, king e7. Or bishop takes, then bishop c6, push, c6, queen check, takes, bishop takes e7, king go to d7, then queen b7. Threat discover attack, threat discover check. If queen e7, win the rook. Takes and play queen takes g7. Threat discover checkmate. If rook g8 we have queen. And now if queen e7, queen takes rook. Easy puzzle, easy win. 5 puzzles in a row. Let's go. Next position. 3 pieces against 3. 3 pawns against 3. Last move. Block play knight c8. Make attack on pawn b6 with 2 pieces. Protect with 1. Can we promote pawn b7 by push and queen in control? You can play rook b6. Sacrifice with the check, king takes, push, rook b6, win the knight with tempo. So rook b7 blockade the pass pawn. Can sacrifice rook by check, king takes rook, push b7, threat promote on b8 or promote on c8. You protect the knight, promote on b8, and if you play rook b6, can win the knight with tempo. So check and push. Now in this position you threat take on h7 with tempo with the check with 2 rooks. Promote queen on b8, same diagonal with h2, b8. Prevent checkmate. Come back, takes with queen. Easy puzzle, easy win. Let's go. Next position. 4 pieces against 5 pieces against 6. Last move. White play bishop d3. Can play queen b. Last move. White play bishop d3. Make attack on rook f5. Same time if I move the rook, you can take on h7 with the check. Now white threat win the rook or take on h7. You can see h file, open file, pawn h7 attacked by bishop and rook. We can give check on g3, can push the pawn, and if I play rook f7 you can force draw by check. So we have one move, queen g3, give check. Yo, hello Oli, welcome to my stream. Give check out to Oli, chess streamer. Today we solve tactic, my friend. Take your time and find the best move. Bishop make attack on queen on knight e5. Bishop make attack on rook. 2 pieces. Okay, we can play in between move by takes on e3. Bishop f5, take the knight, check, queen check and win the rook. Or queen g3 check. Why queen g3 check? Here we play queen takes g2 also. Queen takes g2, give me the rook. Bishop f5 takes with the check, king d7, queen f3 check and win the bishop. If I take on e3, bishop f5, not to check, take on g2, blockade with rook f7, queen f3, blockade check on e5 for the king and for the bishop. Not the best move. Knight c4, knight c4. Okay, next position, checkmate in 3, easy puzzle is win, check, queen f5, queen f7, let's go. Push the pawn, check with 2 rooks, win the queen. Check, force king c7, check with rook. take on d7, and if he take the rook, he can give check and win the bishop. Take the rook first. What? One more check. Okay, no problem. Let's go. Knight f5, threat mate, or win the queen. Bishop f6. Rook d7, bishop takes. Okay, can we play now queen f6? And if takes. Okay, take your time and find the best move. Rook takes d7, bishop takes e5, knight e7, check, protect the knight with tempo, king h8, pawn takes bishop. In between move. Let's go. Tactics time. Nice emote. Okay, bishop control g1. Can give check with rook. Check, rook takes. Rook f2. Threat bishop g2. Rook takes, queen takes, no check, come back, rook f2, best move. I am a bad luck, looks like. Don't understand this position, my friends. Win the knight, maybe rook takes knight, or come back and threat bishop f3. I want to play bishop g2, check, control g2 with rook, bishop g4 and bishop f3. Play normal chess. Let's go. Discover a check and win. Okay, if I play discover check, discover attack with the check with rook f1, rook takes f1, queen g5, we can play knight f6 check. Takes with pawn, rook g5, pawn takes g5. Threat win the bishop. If I play rook e6, he can takes, rook takes, bishop takes d5, king f7, bishop is pinned, just come back. If I play bishop f7, rook f7, king f7, bishop takes with the check, fork the king and fork the rook. So in this position, best move, rook e8. Let's go. Fork two rooks with knight c7, rook h8, make attack on pawn h2, protected by bishop f4. We can threat win piece now by knight takes rook, rook takes, then play rook d4, rook d4, make attack on two pieces. If you protect with knight, okay, takes and rook h4. Knight takes e1, rook takes e1, and rook h4. With rook h4, make attack on two pieces, bishop f4 and knight e4. If you play bishop g5, rook takes knight, bishop takes rook, king takes rook. Rook d4, you can play f3, protect the knight. So knight takes rook, deflect rook e1. After rook takes knight, play rook h4. Play with two rooks against rook, two pieces, rook h4, bishop g5, no problem. Rook e4, bishop d8, king d8. Easy puzzle, easy win, let's go. Four pieces against three. Bishop same diagonal with king and pawn g7. We can make discover attack with knight g5 threat, queen f7 mate, or knight f6. But knight f6, rook, you can take the rook with a check. So knight f6, rook e1, king f7, rook check, and we lose the rook. Two pieces make attack on knight e4, we protect with 2, with queen and rook. Queen d2, threat, queen takes h6 with the check, use the pawn. Bishop g7, rook g7, queen c3, queen d2, protect the rook. What do you think, my friends, in this position? Why to move? Last move we take on c5. Okay, put the rook same file with the queen, so we can move the knight. He double the rook, he can take with the check on e1. Let's put the rook on b1. Threat discover check, discover attack, followed by rook takes b8. Bishop takes g7 and rook takes b8. To rook b1, if rook takes knight, bishop g7, king g7, rook takes queen, rook takes queen, then queen takes e4. I think rook b1, nice move. If rook e4, bishop g7 check, king g7, rook takes b8, rook b8, queen e4, rook b1. If you move the queen, like queen c7, to rook b1, if you play queen c7, then we can play knight g5 or knight f6. We can play knight f6, g f6, bishop takes f6 check, king g8, queen g6 check, take on f6. I think rook b1 best move. Now check, takes, okay, check, king f2, prevent check, fork the king and fork the rook, and GG. Okay, I want to analyze this position. You can see, my friends, he take, open file for bishop. Now if rook e4, bishop g7, king g7, rook takes, rook b8, queen e4. And after rook b8, we give check, king f2, prevent check, fork the king and fork the queen. But in this position, if you play queen c7, queen c7, can play knight f6 idea. If he takes with the check, we threat, now we threat with knight f6, we threat mate, or win the rook. If g takes f6, can takes with tempo with the check, queen g6, only move, and rook f1. So bishop takes, knight f6, give me mate or win the rook. If takes with tempo with the check, we control h7, b1 with queen c2, control e1, h8 diagonal with bishop f6, only move king go to g8, queen g6 check, king f8, and rook f1. Takes with the check and mating 2, and if you blockade with rook g7, check, rook g8, discover check, and GG. One more puzzle to reach beast. You like this puzzle, my friend? One more puzzle to come back to 3100. Take your time and find the best move. Okay, we have 4 pieces against 8 pieces, 2 rooks, queen, 2 knights, and 2 bishop. Plus move White play bishop g5 check, make attack on king e7, queen control d6, only move king go to e8, but take a look at white king position on e3, threat discover check with knight, pawn b5 very strong, pawn control e4 and control c4, knight protected by pawn e5, threat discover check with bishop c5 by knight c2 check, knight c2 give checkmate, double checkmate, threat double checkmate with knight and bishop c5. If you push b3, knight d3 prevent king b2, control b2 with knight. So after check with bishop, only move king go to e8, rook control f5, bishop give check, bishop control d8, control d8, h4 diagonal, only move king come back to e8, after king e8, control f8 with bishop. If you play rook f8, can takes with bishop, so king e8, now we blockade with bishop d5, we blockade e2 g8 diagonal. Now if I make double check, he can go to b3. If I make double check with knight and bishop, he can play king b3. But we can take the bishop with tempo with the check. Knight takes d5 with the check. If you push g5, bishop takes g5, king b3, we can move the knight and make double checkmate. Okay, knight takes d5, take your time and find the best move. Take the bishop with the check. If you push b4, bishop takes b4 check, king b2, can go to b2. Big blunder. Okay, this puzzle not take the bishop. Make double check. Okay, control b3, like push e4, control b3, come back with bishop, push. Because we threat knight c2, double check. We threat knight c2, double check. Let's analyze this position. Nice puzzle. If I push e5, now check, come back. We threat knight c2 check. If you play a normal move like e2, knight takes c2, double check. The queen control b3. You blockade the diagonal with bishop. He can go to b3 now. Only move control b3 prevent. Now we can take on c2 double checkmate to prevent king b3, push e4. Push e4, prevent king b3. Now if you play bishop takes queen, knight takes c2, double check, mate, and he can take pawn e5, protected by pawn e4, protected by pawn b5, and he can go to b3. Nice move, pawn e4. Okay, next puzzle. D takes c4. 4 pieces against 4. 2 rooks, queen, knight against queen, rook, knight, and bishop. 3 pawns against 5. You can see bishop make attack on rook b7. Knight protect rook b7, but last move take on c4. We can take the knight, then play knight takes c4, make attack on the queen, Same time threat queen e6. Okay, bishop b7, knight b7, then knight c6. Bishop b7 if he takes with king. You want to take on c6 and jump to b6 with the check. He controlled c4. Want to take on c4. He controls c4 with knight. If rook e5, sacrifice rook. Rook e5, b5. Okay, takes with the check. Knight takes 5 pawns against 4. If you take with knight, you can play knight c4 and knight b6 check. And if you take with king, then queen e4 check, queen f3. But if I take the knight, okay, rook e5, b5, knight c4. Knight c4, threatening the queen. Same time you can remove the bishop. But if you play queen c7, rook b7, bishop b7, king b7, queen check, queen e4 check, takes with tempo. Now knight e4 threat queen e5, use the pin. Now b6 pawn is pinned by rook b5, we can use the pin and take free knight on e5, queen e4, queen b6 or rook b6. Finish the game. GG. Let's go. Make attack on queen on rook d8 with 2 pieces. Can play rook takes e4, give check. If king f1, rook takes d1. Rook e4, pawn not protected if you blockade with knight. Okay, rook f1, rook d1 check, king d1, queen g4 with tempo. So takes with tempo check, queen takes knight with the check. We push f3, queen g2, e4, then takes, queen takes, queen takes, and mate. Let's come back. Take on e4 first, threat mate, sacrifice. Didn't see sacrifice of rook. Nice puzzle. Should take time and find the best move. Let's go. Next one. This position, black play. Knight takes rook f4. 2 pieces against 1. White to move. If we put the queen on d7, we give mate. Queen d7, give checkmate. King c3 protect the queen on d7, but can find 2 moves, can give checkmate on d7. First, not queen. If I play queen e3 check, he can blockade with knight. Queen d2, he can go to f2. Queen g3 check. Only move. Blockade with rook or move the king. If you move the king like king d1, if you move the king d1, no check. Okay, let's calculate queen e3. Queen e3 check. What do you think, my friends, in this position? Queen e3 give check or queen g3? Create poll. You can vote for queen b3 or queen. You can vote for queen e3 or queen g3 check. White to move. queen e3 give check, or queen g3 check. Guess the best move for white. Take your time, don't move until you see it. Give you 2 minutes. Vote for queen e3 check or queen g3 check. Can use beats or channel point. Vote, let's go. 2 minutes. White to move in this position. Queen e3 give check or queen g3. Or my friends, I forget this move. Okay, queen e3 play forcing move or queen g3. If queen h2 not forcing move, we can play knight e2 check. You can go to knight d5. So forcing move, give check, force this move, for blockade with knight. If queen e3, you can go to e2, and if queen g3, you can play rook f7. Also rook queen h4 can give check. But queen h4, you can move the king, check with queen, blockade with the check. So queen e3 check, vote for queen e3 check or queen g3. If you have another best move for white, you can write in chat. I vote for queen e3. Queen e3 check. He can blockade with knight e2 with tempo with the check. So queen e3 check, knight e2 check. Okay, queen e3. Let's calculate. If queen e3 check, blockade with knight e2 check, we can play king d3, rook f2, queen c1. But my friend, queen c1 not, if rook f2 not queen c1, queen d2 mate, because the knight on e2 control c1 and control c3. So after queen e3 check, blockade with knight and give check, king d3. Now we threat queen d2. So knight, if you come back with knight, only you can give check with the queen, free knight. But after queen e3, knight e2, king go to d3. He blockade with knight and give check, white king. Queen e3, knight come back to e2, blockade black king, same time give check, white king on c3. After king d3, if you play rook f3, queen f3, no check. So queen e3 check, knight e2, king d3, rook f2, you blockade the king. You blockade. If you play rook f2, blockade, protect knight e2, can give mate, not mate. Queen d2 check, king f1, queen d1, king g2. Oops, forgot the knight. Yeah, the knight control c1. After queen e3, knight e2, queen e3 check, blockade with knight e2, king d3 threat mate on e2. Now only move to protect the knight. We threat queen takes e2, rook f2. After rook f2, can play waiting move with the queen. We can come back same file with the queen. if you move the king, we can give mate with the check. I think I have a nice idea, my friends. Come back with the queen. If you move the rook on f2 or g2 or h2, you can move the rook on h2. The knight is pinned. White king on e3. Knight on e2. Come back on e4. Queen e4. Queen e4 threat. Queen h1. Check. So queen e3, knight d2, king d3, rook f2. Then come back with the queen. Come back with the queen, threat mate. Queen can go to e3, e5, give check on e1. So queen e5. Queen e5, rook f3, check. Can give check on f3. Queen e3, knight e2. If you play king d1, queen d2 mate. Queen e3, knight e2, king d3, rook f2. Queen d2 check, king f1. King f1, then knight, then king e3. Okay, queen g3. What is the problem with queen g3, my friends? Let's start with queen g3. Queen g3, if you move the king, you can move the king, no check on d3. So queen e3, threat mate. Queen e3, check. Can you play king c2? Prevent king d1. King c2, rook f2. Then king d3 with tempo. Okay, and now my friends, only move can give check. Queen d2. Threat rook f3 check. If I move the queen, okay, give check king f1, then go to e3. We threat check king g1. I think give one more check on d2. King go to f1, then king d3. If you move the knight, lose by checkmate. Take the rook on f2, and we prevent rook f3. Give check, and king e3. Queen d1, he can play king g2. And after king e3, if you play king g2, nice position, my friends. Okay, check and take the knight, but draw, we force draw. King e3, king e3, we can move, we pin the knight, king e3, and we pin the knight. King e3 can play rook h2 with king e3, king f3, check. Okay, king e3, if you move the rook, check and win the knight. Now check, control f2, king g2, and win the knight. But my friends, if you play king g2, what is best move? We solve the puzzle. Now king g2, queen takes knight. But if you play after king e3, if you play king g2, we can play queen d5 check. I think queen d5 check after king g2. Let's take a look. If you go to g2 with black king, knight takes rook, queen check, knight e2. Now if you play queen after rook f2, if you play queen c1, this is not mate. You can come back with knight. So check with queen, queen d2, king f1, king e3, use the pin. If you move the knight, queen takes f2 mate. And if you play king g2, I want to see best move, king g2. King g2, give me the queen, give me the rook or the knight. If you move the rook, lose the knight with the check. So in this position, move white and king work together to win material advantage, piece. Now if you move the rook like rook g2 or rook g2, mate in 1, queen checkmate. And rook h2, give check, only move king g2, queen takes knight with tempo. Legit. Nice puzzle. Yeah, we solved the puzzle, my friend. Not easy puzzle. Take your time and play the best move. Queen check, check, move the king, check, and GG. Next puzzle, let's go. This position, queen and bishop against queen and rook. Two pieces against two. Block a pass pawn on d3. Can give check on f4. Now last move, understand the last move. Why white put the queen on g7? A threat mate in 1 with queen h6. Can see pawn h3 control. With rook you control g4. Pawn h3 and rook g1 control g4. He threat queen h6 checkmate. Queen protected by pawn g5. Now if I give check with queen, yeah, pass pawn, we can give check with queen on f2 or f4. Also d2 and queen f4 check. Blockade with rook, queen f2, rook g2, force to draw by check check. King h1, bishop check, queen f4 best move. Okay, queen f2, I think best move with queen f2, my friends. Let's calculate. Queen f2 he can blockade with rook, queen f4 he can go to g2. I make a blunder if I play queen f4. So queen f2, king h1, bishop check, blockade with rook, queen takes g2 mate, queen f2 check, force rook g2. After rook g2, now we can give check on f4. King g1, we force draw by check, c1, e3. Okay, queen f2, let's calculate queen f4. Queen f4, king g2, check, mate with bishop. Can play queen f4. Queen f4 not a big blunder. Queen f4 check, king g2, bishop e4 checkmate. Queen f4, rook g3, check with queen, come back to g2. King h1, bishop checkmate, bishop e4, queen f4, rook g3, queen f2. King h1, bishop e4, king h1, bishop e4, rook g2, queen f4, queen f4, king g1, queen e3, king f1, check, check, force draw. Queen here, rook g2, one more check, king g1, queen f4, and now try to give checkmate into what? Not queen f2, not queen f2. Okay, now use the pin. The rook is pinned. King h4, queen check, bishop blockade with bishop. Threat win the rook. Nice puzzle. Not to draw. Queen f4, try to win the rook with the tempo. Rook is pinned, and if you try to give mate, you can blockade with bishop. Tricky puzzle, my friends. Queen f4, I think force draw by give check check. If I play queen f2, you can play rook g2 and no draw. Now king h4, then see bishop h5. Blockade the check with bishop. Try to win the queen, win the rook. If you play rook g2, you can play king g1, then king f1. No. This puzzle not win. Okay, let's take a look at queen f2, rook g2, can force draw by check check. But idea of king h4, Nice move. He threat mate. If you play waiting move like push the pawn, this is mate in 1. So after king h4 we threat queen takes rook with the check. He can protect the rook with queen. Queen control. b1 h2 diagonal. The rook is pinned. We threat queen takes g3 with the check. We try to give checkmate. Bishop can blockade the check. And now give me queen takes g3. Nice puzzle. Next position. Rook and queen against 3 pieces. Queen, rook and bishop. Can we give mate in this position? Mate in rook c1 give check. Queen b1 give check. Rook c1 if king d2, queen c2 mate. Rook c1 if king go to f2. Check with queen, then check. Rook c1. Let's calculate all variation, my friends. Take your time. After rook c1, if king go to d2, queen c2 mate. After rook c1, if king go to e2, queen c2 check. Only move king go to f3. Don't forget this position. White also threat mate with bishop and queen takes g7 mate. So after rook check, white king can go to d2, e2 or f2. Rook c1 check. If king go to d2, queen c2 give mate. Rook control first rank and queen control second rank. So rook c1 check. King d2, queen c2 checkmate. The rook c1 check. If king go to e2 now, same idea. Not queen on c2. Force king go to d3 by give check on g4. Queen g4 check. Force king d3. Then check with queen. Force blockade with rook. See my friends, pawn d5, very strong pawn control. e4 and control. c4, idea of give check. King e2, queen g4 check. King d3, check with queen. Only move blockade with rook. Can give check on f1 or b3. Queen b3 check. Can play king e2, not a good idea. Okay, rook check with rook c1 check. King e2, queen c2 check. Only move king f3. Rook f1 check. Only move king g4. Queen g6. He can blockade with queen g5. I like, my friends, queen g4 and rook c1. Rook c1, king d2, queen g4. We play king f2. Check with rook, followed by mate. Okay, check with rook. You can play king d2, no mate. You can take sphere rook, you can give mate in 1. Rook c1, rook c1, king f2, queen c2, king f3, king f3, check with the queen, control e4 with pawn d5, So rook c1, king d2, rook c1, king f2, queen c2, rook c1, then queen c2, rook c1, king f2, queen c2, king f3, queen d3 check, queen d1, rook e1, rook e2, okay, check with rook, king f2, queen c2 mate, rook c1, king e2, queen c2 check, king f3, check on f3, on f1, king g4, queen g6, queen g5, h5 check, not rook c1, check with queen, then one more check, okay, I see this move, we can blockade then mate in 2 my friends, mate in 2, check with the queen, check, check and mate, not easy puzzle, takes with king, then take the position. Now in this position my friends, if you take with king, block, have time to put the king on f8 and force the draw. We have rook, pawn in rook's file, takes with pawn, king f7, king e7, go to h5, king f8, king h6, then play king g6, takes with pawn. If you take with king, king f8, king g6, so takes with pawn, and play king h5, then king g6, easy pawn end game, queen e4 if king f3. I think my friends not rook c1, only first move give check with the queen. Idea of queen check, if rook c2 check, the rook control second rank, we can give check, and pawn control e4, blockade with rook, queen takes rook mate. We calculate rook c1 check, but best move check with queen. Next one, let's go. Now tricky puzzle, queen b6. If I play queen f2, we can play rook h1 check, king h1, queen takes f2 mate. So in this position my friends, you give check, move the king, or blockade with piece. If I blockade with queen f2, I can play rook h1, deflect the rook and win the queen. And if I move the king, queen control g1, h7 diagonal, rook can give checkmate, rook e8 control e4, rook h1 can give mate. So in this position, blockade with, if I blockade with bishop, he control e3 with two pieces, queen and rook. So blockade with queen d4. Queen d4, if you try to deflect rook d1 with rook e1 check, don't take the rook, you can play queen d4. Queen d4 best move, then black can give check on e1, then king f2. Rook e1, queen takes, and push the pawn if you try to give mate. So queen d4 and king f2 now. Now after king f2 you can play this move my friends. Rook h3 to h1, threat rook f1 mate. Don't take the queen, you can give mate, but push g4. If you give check, white king can go to g3. King f2 and push g4. Now tricky move with queen b6, rook h f1 checkmate. So g3, g4, easy puzzle, easy win. See my friends, now if you try to give mate, white king can go to g3, no check on e3. Let's go. Can I see easy puzzle, easy win in short? Put emote of easy puzzle, easy win. Let's go. Next puzzle. Rook, queen against queen, rook and knight. 3 pawns against 5. Rook control d file. Okay, now control second run and threat. White threat mating wall with queen f2, queen f7, give mate. So queen give check, queen e1 check, queen e1 check, only move king f5, then check with queen on fourth rank, king c3, queen d4 mate, queen e1 check, let's go. And now check with queen e4, we fork the king and fork the rook. No mate on, he can go to b5, no checkmate. Can we give mate? I think we can give mate, my friends. After check with the queen, we can give mate. King go to, if king come back to c3, queen d4 mate, pawn control c5 and control d5. After king b5, check with pawn, king takes pawn, rook check and rook e5 mate. This puzzle check and mate in 3, check, one more check, you can see pawn control e5 and control c5, queen control fourth rank and control c6. Check with pawn, deflect the king to give checkmate with rook, check, check and mate. Let's go. Next puzzle, 3 pieces against 3. Threat win the rook. Same time you can give check on e6, then queen f6. So check, takes with bishop or takes with queen. If queen f6 check, king r6, queen g5 mate, queen g5 not mate, but check with bishop, check with bishop or with queen, queen check, king come back, queen check, king g7, bishop f6. Give check with bishop, king f8, checkmate in 2, bishop f6, king f8, queen e7 check, queen g7 mate, and bishop f6, king go to h6. Now he control e3 with queen. So to take with bishop, big blunder. Take with queen, takes with queen, force king g8, queen e6 come back, push pawn f6, king r6, no check. But if I take with queen, king r6, queen check, come back, push f6. What do you think, my friends? Takes with queen or with bishop? Takes with queen. If king g8 takes the rook with bishop, takes with bishop, king r6, takes with the queen, make attack with 2 pieces. If you give check, king e3, okay, I take with bishop. Why big blunder? Maybe check with bishop if king takes, check with rook, g6, bishop g7, bishop g7, king g7. Idea, my friends, queen in same diagonal. If king takes g7, push f6 and win the queen. Nice puzzle. Sacrifice bishop. If king takes bishop, push the pawn with discover check and win the queen. So after king f7, check, bishop g7. Now bishop g7. If king takes, f6, check, discover attack, and win the queen. No mate with queen f6. Let's go. Queen b4. 3 pieces against 3. Sacred cut pawn structure. 4 against 5. If I give check, force king c2 or king. Give check, only move king go to c2. Queen d5, king c2. Knight control c3 and control b2. After queen d5 check, queen d5 check, king c2, rook c8, rook c8, can give check, control c file, okay, check and mate, blockade with queen, queen takes rook, so check on d5, king go to c2, only move, queen d3 check, control b2 and we control c3 with knight, we force king c1, then rook, so check and mate. Easy puzzle. Queen e4, queen d4, queen d5, queen d3, rook c8, blockade with queen, then mate. Check, only move, knight control with queen, knight control b2 and c3, and now rook c1, rook c8, give mate, blockade with queen, rook takes c5, checkmate. Let's go. Okay, in this position, double check, he threat, you can see 5 pieces against 5 against 6 pieces, can make double checkmate, double check, only move king out to the corner, then check with the queen, force rook takes queen and knight f7 mate. Nice checkmate, rook g6, queen g8 now, force rook takes queen, only move, and knight f7 mate. Nice puzzle. Knight tricky piece. Okay, in this position, knight make attack on queen. We have 4 pieces against 4. Pawn structure, double pawn on g file, close a triangle, d5, c6, b5, e3, d4, c3, close a triangle against open triangle. Okay, now this position we can give check, only check, make attack on the queen. Check, takes, okay, knight takes queen, 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 knight check, try to protect the knight with tempo. If king g4 or king g3, knight takes e3, idea of knight takes e6, sorry. If you take the knight with king, we can win the rook on g5. So after knight g2, knight e6, knight h4 check, protect the knight. If you move the king to win the knight, knight takes e6, try to win the rook. And if you move the rook, you can come back with knight f5. So knight g2, knight h4, knight e6, and knight g5. Play with rook against bishop. Not sacrifice queen, my friend Oli, but play in between move. Can come back, show you. Not sacrifice queen. Just take the queen and give check. Now with threat. Now if you play knight takes e6, you can come back and win the knight with rook. Play with the knight and the rook. against bishop and rook. So I give check with tempo, in between move, try to protect the knight. If you move the king, try to win the knight. You can take on e6 and threat win the rook. Next puzzle. This puzzle, my friends, if I solve this puzzle, I come back to 3100. So last move we play bishop takes f4. Bishop takes f4. Look at the pawn structure. Takes with g pawn or takes with e pawn. If I take with the g pawn, you can push g3, g2 and promote on g1. So takes, push, knight f1, push and gg. But if I takes with e pawn and push e3, we can play knight b1, and if we push e2, knight can jump to c3, give check, fork the king and fork the pawn on e2. So takes with e pawn, best move. Now not knight c4, we can play knight c4, force e2, then give check and play knight c2, protect pawn e2. But my friends, if I play this move, knight b1, try to play knight c3 with the check. If I play knight b1, he can push c4 with the check. If I play king c2, he can play king b4. Knight here, so maybe knight e2, then give check and put the knight on c2. Best move. Knight c4, force e2, knight check, king e5, knight c2, push with the check, king can go and take on e2. I think knight c4 best move. You just come back to b1, check and win the pawn, and put the knight on c4. Okay, take this pawn. Takes knight b1. I see knight b1, remove the pawn, then try to win pawn f5. If you try to take on g3, you can take on f5. King f3, knight takes f5 and protect two pawns. King come back, knight here, come back, push. Okay, nice puzzle. Now queen and bishop against two rooks, queen and bishop. Bishop is pinned. This is mate in one, mate in one. GG. You can see the queen. Give checkmate with queen. Pawn control b4, pawn c3 control b4, bishop control c5 and d4 and d3. Mate in one, let's go. Okay, in this position, queen d2. If I push f4, takes with pawn, king d6. But if I play rook d4, rook d4 give me the queen. What is the idea of this puzzle, my friends? If I play rook d4, can push and promote the pass pawn. So rook d4, if takes, king takes, push the pawn, rook d4 and push d6, d7 and maybe sacrifice queen. Okay, wait my friends, if I push, rook, queen takes, pawn takes, king takes, put the bishop on. Okay, now tricky puzzle. If I push d3, if I push d5, d6, he can take on d4, and after pawn takes d4, he can take on d3, and you can push d5, protect the bishop. If you push the pawn, bishop takes, 2 pawns against 2 with bishop, win the game. Just push, takes, and GG. 39, 99, my friend. My friends, 3099, 1 point to come back to 3100. Let's go. Knight d5, make attack on rook f6. Same time king give check. Okay, if I take, okay, give check first. Force king d2. Then rook takes d4. If rook takes b1, rook takes e4 with the check, you can take with tempo. Check king here, no queen b4, you protect b4. Check with the rook. Can you take with the queen? You can play knight f6 with check and you can take d4. Play rook takes d6 now. Rook takes d6. Rook takes d6. Knight e7, king h8. And rook takes d6. Takes with queen. Make a blunder in easy puzzle. Okay, check with knight. Check with the queen. King here, check. Check with knight, you can play king g8. Queen g6, king here, knight f7, give me the queen. And after knight g5 check. If king go to d7 check. Come back, check and mate. Knight g5 check. Queen g6. Queen g7, queen g7, king g7, knight e6 with the rook. Let's go. Want to come back to 3100. Knight e4. In this position you play knight e4. Rook not protected. We can play bishop e6. Discover attack. Threat win rook e1. Or bishop f5. Bishop f5. Don't like to sacrifice queen. Bishop f5. Give me the queen. Okay, bishop f5. Knight f7. Bishop f5. Knight f7. Bishop d3. Knight d6. Rook e8. Knight e8. But if I play bishop f5 and I play knight f7, we can play rook e8. If knight d6, rook check, queen f1, rook f1, king f1, and bishop d6. Two bishop against knight. So bishop f5, rook e8, rook check, queen f1 takes, and bishop takes d6. We reach 3104. We make 1 hour and 31 minutes. Pause this. Take your time and play the best move. bishop g5, queen g5, rook h1, queen l6, rook h6, check. Bishop g5 idea, make attack on the queen, on with rook e1. If queen takes g5, rook check, queen takes rook, bishop takes rook, queen b2, or bishop h6. He can play queen g4 check and win the bishop. So check with the queen, check with the queen, king here, then bishop g5, queen takes rook, bishop takes rook, check with the queen, not good move. Check force king b1, bishop d2. I want to prevent queen g4 check. Can put the bishop on g5 or play queen h5 check. Check with the queen. Okay, let's try bishop h6, queen g4, king f1, rook d1, rook d1, king g2, queen g4. Check, prevent queen g4, king here, then bishop g5, queen takes rook, bishop takes rook, queen b2, king f1, check, king g2. Yes, 4 passes in a row, 3114. Solve 4 puzzles in a row. Take your time and play the best move. Okay, in this position, queen takes f5. Bishop control g2, h1. Can give check with rook. Okay, sacrifice rook, then give check and queen g2. Sacrifice rook to give mate, but sacrifice rook on e1, not on g2, because rook g8 on e1, rook g8 check, king f1, rook g1, king takes, queen check, king g1, king f1, queen check, king e2, another check, he can go to d2. But if I sacrifice on e1, only move rook takes e1, then we can play queen g8 check, king f1, the rook blockade white king, then queen g2 give mate. So rook e1 check, queen g8, queen g5, queen g2 mate. 5 puzzles in a row. Excellent streak. Okay, nice, let's go.